Hey everyone, today is April 13th, 2025. We're out here at the largest birch tree in the yard and it's dry. We're just gonna, can I wiggle that out with my hand? Sometimes you actually can if you wiggle it back and forth. Yeah, we're gonna take that one in. The whole hole is completely dry in there. Nothing's gonna come out of this tree. But over here in this part of the yard, we're doing pretty good. So, we have that bucket there about to overflow. We have that one at half, that one at half, that one at half. So we probably have about 15 gallons of sap right here. So we're gonna do our first large-scale boil of birch. We tried an experiment boil with only a couple of inches. Took about an hour to boil it down. I burned part of it. I still tasted it. It was sugary. The burnt wasn't too bad. But I want to try this again. Now, this is much more difficult to produce than maple syrup. And the reason is maple syrup, you need 40 gallons. You got to boil it down, and you get 1 gallon. So these, you actually require 100 or 120 gallons of sap to make 1 gallon of syrup. This stuff is not as concentrated. You drink it from the tree. To me, anyways, it tastes like water. You drink from the buckets on a maple tree, it tastes like sugar water. This stuff, you boil it down halfway. I still taste nothing. Maple syrup, you boil it down halfway. It tastes like tea. It's really good. This stuff, you boil it all day long into an actual syrup. Compared to maple, in my opinion, it's bland. But we're going to try it today, see how it goes. As far as the maple trees, I'll probably do one more boil, but that'll probably be it for the year. In this climate, we can probably boil into the month of May, but I think I'm going to remove the buckets and stuff, only because, if you think about it, I've already made maybe 24 jars of the stuff this season. Each jar probably takes a good 5 hours of effort or so. And it's really just not worth me continuing this at this pace. A container of jars, when you buy a 12-pack, probably about $1.50 a piece per jar I'm using. Then we got all the buckets, but those are all paid off. We can use those multiple years. You can use the taps indefinitely, all that stuff. The propane cost me $13 per tank to fill. The average day of boiling will boil for over 12 hours using about 1.5 tanks. So each jar, I would say, comes out around, realistically, around $8 or so. And it's just the time put into it. Next year, if I do this again, I'm not going to be boiling it in a pot. You want a much larger surface area. They actually sell specifically for maple syrup this large square pan that's not very deep. It not being not very deep is good because it'll evaporate faster. It's built so you make a cinder block wall. You put it on the top and you make a big fire under it with wood. Then you don't have to pay for the propane. I saw one of those on Craigslist earlier this year. I wanted to buy it so bad, but I couldn't afford it. I think next winter we'll probably have one. The next winter, we can maybe tap even more trees, and it won't be a hassle or a burden having to sit out here for 12 or 16 hours every single night boiling the stuff. So next year we'll try it at maybe a larger scale if I can get that part. But let's get started on the boil. Birch trees don't start dripping until later in the season, but as you can see, they are dripping quite fast. We tapped everything in the yard, maples and birch, all back in February. These didn't start dripping until maybe the very end of March. Now it's April, and these will drip for a while. I've had to cut down these type of trees before. It will bleed all summer long. It just takes forever for it to realize there's a hole there, I guess. And look, yeah, it's actually overflowing if you see that. It's completely full. We need to start tapping. Now this stuff here, even animals don't seem to be able to detect the sugar in it. You never find bugs in it. But on the other hand, having maple sugar, and I recently went driving through one of the biggest commercial farms that we have up here. So the top of Maine probably has an area that's over 100,000 acres, probably bigger, honestly. They have millions of maple trees tapped. And there's deer absolutely everywhere licking the trees, because you see around the spouts, you lose a little bit sometimes, and the deer absolutely love it. And I noticed since I've been doing this, there's deer poop all over the forest floor. They love the smell of sugar. All right, everyone, you're gonna see it for the first time with me. I just clicked it off. Wow, incredibly clean. That is very, very clean. Absolutely no filtering required. We don't have to be careful of silt at the bottom. That's awesome. I guess because insects can't detect the sugar content, just like myself, you don't find anything in it. So someone told me that the little mites I was finding are actually springtails. They're completely harmless. We were able to just skim them off. We usually were finding those in the maple syrup. But look, we got 5 gallons. We're going to put 4 in here. You don't want it too high so it starts boiling out. Then we'll quickly add the rest. And I don't think we're going to have to worry about it foaming up anytime soon, because it's not very concentrated. Like the maple syrup, you can only put that on like 3/4 high, or it'll start foaming up out of the top. But this will be an interesting day. We got a good amount of it, and I want to get this back on the tree fast because it's dripping fast. Try to collect a bit more. All right, everyone, so this stuff here, the reason it stays so clean this time of year is because we have freezes at night. You want a lot of freezes at night. It keeps this stuff pure. It prevents bacteria and algae growth in there typically. And now that it's going to start getting warmer in the next month or so, once we have no more freezing nights, you got to start taking this stuff in every single day if you're still intending on boiling, because you'll get algae in there. You're going to get bacteria starting to grow in there. And you might say, why does that matter, the bacteria? You're going to boil it. Well, I definitely agree with that, but the algae will remain. It'll make it a little bit of a foggy end product. And people were asking me, even if I don't see anything in there, why don't I filter it? That doesn't make any sense to me, but what you're seeing in the maple syrup, the powder at the bottom of it, is something that would be filtered at an additional stage in a sugar factory. That's called sugar sand. And the molecules in there that you can't see actually bind together under heat. So it's nothing that I'm initially putting in there. It's something that forms along the way as it boils and tumbles all day. But typically, you can do this until there are no more freezing nights. Freezing nights help squeeze the trees, helps get the sap out of it more efficiently. They'll still go for a couple of weeks typically once it's constantly above freezing, but at that point the tree starts making buds, and once it makes buds, it stops making excess sap. So in that, you're done anyways. Here's what came from that far away tree I was showing over there. So we're gonna dump this in here, freeing up this bucket. I'm gonna clean this bucket now and get it back over there on the really drippy tree. Now we gotta go see what's in the tree that's across the stream on that fat tree. This is truly the fastest dripping tree I've ever seen. Let me put you up close. Can you hear that? Yeah, that's dripping fast in there. Now we're gonna go to that fatter tree over there and see what it's produced. Touching wet objects today with bare hands is a little bit cold. Today's high is only going to be about 38 or 4 Celsius. Well, we're definitely going to bring it in. There's a couple gallons in there. I guess I spoke too soon earlier. This is what came out of that tree. There is one of those little springtails and a fly. They're both still alive. We're going to get them out of there. And look how crystal clear the water is. And this is the other small tree next to the overflowing bucket. Crystal clear. I guess the younger trees, the smaller trees, produce a lot better than the older ones. So this is what we got to boil. I estimate maybe 6 hours. I think that's all it'll take. We'll maybe get 1 full jar out of this. We'll see. For anyone who's wondering why I'm tapping white birch and not yellow birch, well, that's a good question. This right here is yellow birch. This would be preferred to tap if I had ones that were large enough. I've got probably 100 of them this size, but they're not big enough to be tapping on. So I just went ahead and broke off a piece, which is already dripping. As you can see, look at that. Look how much syrup is coming out of such a small tree. Look at that. It's dripping out of that tiny branch. Who knows, maybe you could tap one this small. Maybe it would actually work. But this type of tree would actually be better. It's the same sap to syrup ratio when you're boiling it, but this stuff, you rip off a branch, smell it. Smells like root beer. You can taste it. Smells amazing. When they used to bring us out in nature on like field trips, they'd have us chew on stuff like this. It tastes amazing. If we were doing this, like, let me try that sap. Let me lick that a little bit. Yeah, that tastes like root beer. I bet this would be amazing if we were tapping these trees instead. All right, everyone. This propane tank is about to burn out. At this point, it's more like it's coughing. The flame is literally about to go out. And because it's coughing, it's not burning off all the fuel. I can smell propane. But that's about to be done. It's boiling really good out of this hole. You gotta let the vapors escape if you want it to evaporate. I only have it covered because it's starting to rain. So yeah, we're about to switch out this tank. You always put them in hot water like this because the tank will start freezing and it will actually just stop flowing altogether. In fact, when I put it in this warm water, it was stuck to the ground right there. So this is actually smelling really, really good, and it's turning a very, very good color. The last time we did this, we probably attempted this with like 2 or 3 gallons. So today, I think we'll actually finally get something. But that flame, we'll let it go for another 5 minutes. Let me show you other things before we switch that out. To be honest, since we have such a quantity of it today, it's more condensed. You can really smell the sugar in the white birch. It smells awesome. It actually smells very similar to the maple. So if you don't have maple trees, don't be discouraged. This one actually has run dry. What you're just seeing is rainwater. You look deep in there, it's dry. Some of the trees are done empty. It's completely empty. So what happens is the ones in the woods are all still producing for me. I haven't found a single one drying up yet. A few are getting slow, but most of them are still going just as good as they ever were. The reason is, in the forest, snow sticks around longer, which means the ones in the forest will start producing later, so they'll also go later. Once the snow melts, the ground thaws. And then when the ground thaws, the trees start drinking. If the trees aren't drinking, you're not going to get anything. This one here being in the yard, the roots, everything has thawed out. It's already absorbed all the water it needs for the season, so it has stopped dripping. You look up, there's buds on the trees. It's about to grow leaves. We're done. We cannot tap any more from this tree. We need to pull out. They're very easy to pull out. Grab a hammer very gently. Tap one side a couple times. Tap the other side a few times, back and forth. Sometimes you can even wiggle it out yourself. Not this one. Alrighty, I just switched over to the next tank. Now these tanks here, I refill them at the local gas station for like 13 bucks. It's much cheaper than exchanging them at Blue Rhino. And people argue that you get more if you go fill it somewhere private. Blue Rhino supposedly doesn't always fill them to their max. These, I keep these. When you get these tanks from an exchange, don't throw this away. I'm going to show you why. This tank is now empty. I'm not bringing it to Blue Rhino. I'm going to bring it to my local gas station, which fills them for 13 bucks. When I'm done, I'm going to stick this back on there because we have mud wasp that like to fill this with mud, and they love filling holes like that. They also do that to the wiring harnesses on my trailers. They'll make nests in there and you can't plug it in. So I was mentioning that these trees, especially the larger ones, they don't seem to produce as much. The younger trees seem to produce a lot more. I left one bucket attached to one of them. The rest of them I have pulled out because this stuff, it just takes a lot more effort than it does for maple. So we're actually going to switch some of these over to some, yellow birch that aren't on my property, but they're like 100 feet past the property line on the logging company's property. They won't mind. I know somebody's gonna disagree in my comments, and yeah, the rule typically for maple trees and birch trees when you're tapping them, they should have an 8-inch diameter. This has maybe a 3-inch diameter, but it's already dripping a lot, so we're gonna let it go for a little bit. I don't really intend on boiling it down, but just drinking it pure right from the tree because it's quite delicious. Way back here, these trees will probably produce for a couple more weeks. Like I said, there was snow here for a while, so they started coming out of hibernation a little bit later. So we come up to them, almost full, almost full. We got a good amount. That tree seems like it's actually slowing down. That one used to fill them in one day. Now this one, almost nothing. That tree, it still looks wet in the tap. Now we come over here to the next one. This one's actually overflowing. And this one wasn't doing good the last time I checked it. It's because this one must have come out of hibernation a little bit later because its roots were, you see it's even dripping onto the ground right here. Yeah, we'll have to do, I think I'm gonna do one more large scale maple boil, maybe later in the week. Just one more. And because we have a bunch of full buckets, and I bet you the tree in the corner, which is always overachieving, is gonna have a ton. Or maybe it's time for it to shut off. I'm not really sure yet, but yeah. This is the property line. You see there's a road right back here. That is logging. But I want to try tapping a few trees back there also. We come over here to another one that hasn't been producing much. It's actually doing better than it has been, and I think that's because in this section of the woods, the snow stuck around longer. So we come back here. I've actually come out here and drilled them already. I know exactly which ones I'm gonna tap. It's so hard to find large yellow birch around here, but we already drilled and tapped this one. It's going really good. And where is it? Is it hiding? That one back there. You see there's a white birch and a yellow birch next to each other. I already drilled a hole in that one. We're gonna go hang buckets and see what happens. Now, when I was drilling those, I tasted them, just like I tasted at the beginning of the video. They don't really taste that good. But that little one you just saw I ridiculously hung a bucket on, it tastes amazing. I feel like the younger trees have a higher sugar content. There's something that makes it taste better. The little trees, when you break branches off them, it tastes like root beer. The bigger trees don't. I'm not exactly sure why. I mentioned the deer earlier. Literally, it's all over the place. Since I started tapping these trees, deer are everywhere. People were asking me if animals ever mess with them. The answer was no a couple of months ago, and the answer is still no. I've never had a bear rip these open. Typically, when the trees stop, is about the same time the bears come out of hibernation. I haven't seen a bear yet this year, but my neighbors have. They haven't been over here. They haven't ripped into these thinking they smell good. Maybe they will this year. I've never tapped so many trees at once. Raccoons have never done it, but the deer do come up to it and they will lick any spillage or overflowing. They love the smell of the sugar. There's something about it. Something about it. I have never had many deer in the yard. I've had trail cameras here for years. You'll catch a deer here and there. Now, suddenly, there's groups of deer in the yard all the time. And I think it has to do with this. I don't know what it is, but this stuff seems to boil and evaporate faster than maple. We haven't been going very long, but I do think still the 6-hour mark will do it. Alrighty, everyone. We are all done. I stopped it probably earlier than I should have, just because I wanted more of it. I don't care that it's looser. To be honest, it smells similar to maple syrup. It tastes similar to maple syrup, but not as good. And it's not because I didn't concentrate it more. it just doesn't have the sugar content and it's more bland. There's a lot more sugar, but I should say there is less flavor. So you can make this just as thick as molasses, and it's not going to taste as good, in my opinion, as maple syrup. So it's harder to make, and it's more bland. Yeah, you can get sugar out of it, but why go through this? That's why when you do find it, it's expensive, and it just doesn't taste as good. What we have in here just doesn't taste as good. I mean, it is sugary. It tastes good, but it tastes similar to maple syrup, but extremely bland. So I won't do this again. I will try the other type of birch tree, but I'm telling you, it's just not as good. And yeah, it tastes almost the same as maple syrup. It's just lacking flavor, to be honest with you. I won't go through the effort to try to make this product again. I will experiment with yellow birch. I will try that. And if it comes out good, next season we'll do larger scale of that. And here's the good thing about this, the way it is. So most of the maple trees are going to stop producing in the next week or two. I guarantee it. On the other hand, the birch just started, so if you're someone who loves to make maple syrup, maybe try disconnecting those when they stop and try tapping birch, because the seasons, birch will go a lot longer into the season because it starts so much later. But I hope this video was interesting, everyone. Thanks for watching, and have a great day. All right, everyone, we got to give this a massive chug now instead of just licking my finger off. Let me turn it around a little bit. See, this side has a little bit of burnt bubble, so I want to drink it from the clean side. Incredibly sweet. It's a little more tart. Not as sweet, not as much flavor, but incredibly similar to maple.